Oh, now I
Yeah.
can see you.
Hi, Stefan. Really
Hey,
nice of
Katja.
you to join, and thank you so much for being here, for talking to us. This is the second interview or chat in our little series of coffee chats, and I'm really excited to have you as a coffee farmer speak to me about your life of doing what you're doing in Uganda, Sembabule, Uganda.
Yes,
Really nice to
it's
have
great.
you.
Great having me. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Well, I, you know, I for once have never lived on a coffee farm before. So if we get right down to it, I'd say let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself, about who you are and what you do, and how you got to where you are and what you do.
All right. Yeah. The short version would be like, I'm Stefan and I'm a coffee farmer, but it is a lot more longer story behind that. So actually, 9 years ago, I decided to come to Uganda, to the farm where I am right now. Is the farm from my granddad. He bought this farm back in the 50s. And yeah, I said, like, why not? Why not? 9 years ago, it was more or less a question about um, do we as a family want to run the coffee farm? Or because born in Germany with my sister and brother, it was more or less a question if there's someone from us who would go and take care of the farm. And well, before that, I've of course had to think about what am I going to do um, with the farm. And my dad, a few years back, before me, came also back to the farm and planted coffee trees. And that's where I intensely got in contact with coffee. Uh, I thought about, of course, growing and selling coffee, but it was not that easy in the beginning. Um, Ahead of leaving Germany was a lot of talking with importers and roasters and people from the coffee industry. And the, when I told them that yeah we have a coffee farm in Uganda, they were kind of pretty much excited and everything. And but when I told them that it's actually the Robusta type, it was kind of uh, how could I say that? Yeah, because they were more into Arabicas. Let's say it like this.
Excitement was
So
dampened a little bit.
at that time, yes, it was. So it was pretty tough, and everyone told me it is pretty much impossible to enter the specialty coffee market with the Robusta type. And I got a little kind of a setback that time, but I said like it's just Robusta. I mean, it cannot be that bad. And yeah, I started researching about Robustas, and pretty much no roaster was really, let's say, he's really working with Robustas. So it was for me, was it kind of difficult to find a market um, in the beginning. So I told myself like, okay, if the industry or the market is not yet ready, why don't let we decide the end customer or the end consumer? Um, so that's where actually Coffee You Know was born from. Um,
That's your
so
company, Coffee You Know.
yes, exactly. I founded Coffee You Know because I wanted to give end consumers the possibility to actually get to know who is working on the coffee, or actually the whole supply chain from farm up to really to the cup. And So Coffee started to sell roasted coffee to end customers. So it was
grown and roasted in Uganda. That is right.
In the first year, it was in Germany, roasted in Germany, and then I switched to Uganda after a few years. And meanwhile, we work with roasters because the market is changing. Luckily, happily, more and more roasters are interested in good robustas, fine robustas, and that's where we are right now. That's why I'm in Uganda, still in Uganda 9 years later, still processing washed robustas. Yeah.
Amazing. Really daring. So I take it then you grew up in Germany and probably didn't start growing coffee in Germany, right? So you basically came back to your family farm in Uganda, having done a whole lot of research on how to grow coffee, and your dad had already started cultivating the plants then at that point?
Yeah.
So back when the farm was still run by your granddad, he didn't grow coffee back then, 50 years ago, or?
It was more or less cattle farming.
Okay.
Cattle farming and all these seasonal things like maize, beans, and things like that for the daily living. But mainly it was cattle farming. Of course, he had some coffee trees, which almost everyone has got somehow in his garden somewhere. But it was not his main business. So it was farming, cattle farming.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And then your dad decided to grow coffee commercially, essentially, to ramp up production on the coffee trees that were there and add some more to the mix. And then you came to Uganda, and I mean, how did you learn the actual agricultural trade of growing coffee? Is that just by trial and error, or is that knowledge that's there in the community and you just went and talked to people, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it's kind of a mix. You do a lot of research, you read a lot, and you talk to people who are in the industry for many years, and of course, learning by doing is in my experience a very good indicator. Like you try something out and you see how it works for you, because what works for me here in the farm maybe doesn't work for a farm maybe 100 kilometers away. So each farmer has to find his own style and his own unique way of growing his coffee. Of course, I was working with agronomists in the beginning because I come from a completely different field. I mean, coffee growing is something which here actually everyone does somehow, but in a real commercial way is kind of a bit of a difference in farming. So I had of course help in the beginning. I visited some farmers with good agricultural practices and learned about farming and the different types of farming, and that's where it all started. And over the years, it's a process. You never stop learning. It's kind of every day you learn, you see, you try something new, but it's nice. It's really nice.
I love to hear you say that, because that's one of the things that I love most about coffee. That I always feel like you can never know everything there is to know about coffee. There's always more you can learn. And I love the fact that even you as the first step in the chain, kind of feel that way about it as well. It's just miraculous. Well, I guess miraculous in that sense, but then in other senses, it's very much, as you said, a skill-based thing, that there are like firm things that you can learn and you can apply and try out, and as you said, see how they work. They might work for you, but not for the next coffee farmer down the road, right? Because I guess
Yeah.
is it about microclimate on your farm then, or just as we discussed before turning on the camera, is it about things like rainfall and sunshine and all of those things combined then, or?
It's definitely one of the biggest issues we have. You talk about climate change and things in which it's crazy to see happened in the last 9 years. What happened um, with things which used to have working out perfectly here on the farm, maybe it doesn't work out anymore because of climate change, because of too much sunshine or too much rain, which we had like in January, which is usually the hottest month of the year, and it rained all through it. And yeah, but you have to try to adapt some things and try to fight it in your microclimate here on the farm with things you can do. Um, but it's changing. It's really changing, and it's not yet scary, but we will see what happens. I mean, if you look, for example, I mean that happens all over the world in all the coffee producing countries. If you talk to farmers, you talk to importers, they can assure you that there is climate change and things are not that easy anymore like they used to be. But we are fighting. We're trying to fight it.
Can you give us an example? I mean, you said January this year has been very different for you than it used to be in previous years.
Yeah.
Because usually it's the hottest month, but this month there was a lot of rain. So what does that mean? What's the consequence of that for you and your farm and your trees?
Usually we are processing we're still in the season in January, and too much rain also damages your coffee. So the quality was not that good in January. So some of us decided not to process that coffee anymore because you could see even on the drying tables that the quality doesn't look like if if the coffee comes out of a pretty good ripening stage, which was actually not there then, because the coffee bean needs some sunshine for a good ripening. So yeah, many people lost a lot of coffee in January, and not lost, but it was not yet for the export, for example.
So that means it'll stay in the domestic market then?
Yeah. Yeah. Most of the coffee then stays, which also somehow ends up somewhere we don't know. That's the commercial coffee. Yeah.
Okay. Then I mean that's interesting in itself as well. Obviously, I mean that's really scary to not be able to influence that at all, I would imagine. I mean, you've told me before that it's really important to you to work with people on your farm who know what a ripe cherry looks like, and only to harvest the ripe cherry so you can actually maintain your quality levels, and then to have that control just sort of taken away by climate and by too much rain. That must be scary, definitely. Yeah? And then, so very concretely speaking, this January then, most of the coffee that was still on the drying tables in January, under normal circumstances, you would have used that for the specialty market. But this year, the quality wasn't at that level, and that means you had to sell it as commercial coffee. Is that what's happening then, or?
Yeah, we actually did stop even processing.
Okay.
So we did not process the coffee as washed coffee. So, but we did some naturals, some sun-dried coffee, which you can easily sell off in the villages at any time. But processing the coffee as washed wouldn't make any sense because how the ripening stage should look like. But it was not given this January. So and processing coffee washed is also expensive. So you don't want to go into to make any losses.
Mhm.
So we decided to stop it. Yeah, and we wait for the next season, and which is kicking in right now. So we are going to start next week again with processing. Yeah.
Mhm. Maybe just going a step back, just to get a better understanding of your situation on your farm. How big is your farm? Do you count that in coffee trees or in area or?
The farm was actually 140 acres, but I'm not using all the acres for the specialty coffee because I use right now around about 30 acres, which I'm taking good care of, or trying to take good care of, to treat the trees as they have to be treated to give you a good product. And yeah, that's kind of a size which I can manage with the people of workers I have right now. But we don't know what's going to happen in the future, if we are expanding or see. Yeah.
And does that mean that's 30 acres of coffee for the specialty market, and then you have other areas on your farm where you grow coffee that goes into the commercial sector, or
Yeah.
do you grow other crops?
No, for me, my main business is of course coffee, and yeah, I plant some beans, some maize aside, but this is just for the workers. And of course, bananas. Bananas give you first shade and food for the workers. But besides that, I'm planting nothing else.
You're a coffee farmer through and through.
Trying to be, yeah.
Okay, then would you say what percentage of your annual harvest overall goes into the specialty sector, and what percentage do you sell to the commercial sector, just as a rough estimate?
The thing right now is I'm producing on request. So I get my orders, and I know what I have to process and I have to produce. Yeah, it's not that I'm using all the coffee for the washed right now. So the orders are coming in, and then I can process and produce that coffee which is going to be required.
Okay, oh, that's an interesting concept, and that's I guess that reduces risk and cost for you as well, then, right? Because you said that processing washed coffee is more expensive.
It is actually, yeah. It is actually, yeah.
Because of the labor that goes into it, or
you need a lot of labor. You have to have some equipment, which it's weather pattern. So things I have to, every time drying tables need to be renewed, new nets. It's kind of costly. So we try to reduce the costs. But if we're not processing wet, then we're trying to do sometimes also some experiments, but just to see whether we can use that experiment for the next season to offer to some roasters. Yeah.
Interesting. It's really cool to see that even in the Robusta market, because as you said, it is a different market from the Arabica market. Things like that are popping up and are becoming a thing. That makes me really hopeful regarding Robusta coffees, right? And the quality that I'm looking for as a roaster as well. Maybe that's actually an interesting aspect. Not everyone might actually know about the differences between Arabica and Robusta. Can you just briefly give us a little overview what the main differences are between the two plants and maybe also why you decided to grow Robusta instead of Arabica?
Yeah, of course. I mean, Arabica and Robustas, I always say like it's a bit, it doesn't make any sense for me to compare these two because these are two different species or varieties. Arabica has some attributes which the market gives it or attaches to Arabica, and Robusta is the so-called lowland coffee, which grows from sea level to 1,200 meters, where we are, for example, which are pretty high for Robustas, and Arabicas usually grow up in the highlands, starting from 1,200, 300, like around that. And why do I grow Robusta? Because our area is suitable for Robusta, actually. We are pretty high, as I said, for Robustas, and too low for good quality Arabica, let's say like this, because there are Arabicas which grow at 1,000 meters. But our area is just suitable for Robustas, and that's actually what I found. But what I found actually here also, I found the Robusta trees.
Mm-hmm.
So I was forced to work with Robustas, and yeah.
But then I guess another decision that you took was to try your luck or educate yourself in a way that makes it possible to sell your Robusta into the specialty market rather than going commercial with it. Because I would think even with a good, decent quality Robusta, it would be quite easy to sell that commercially, because it is used in most commercial blends as well as in instant coffee, and it's a big market, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is actually. And as you know for yourself, back in the days, there was pretty hard to enter the market, the specialty market, with the Robusta, and so I had to think about myself. What can I do to get that quality, where roasters would say like, "Hey, we're interested in a Robusta," actually. So that's why I started doing using the wash process, which you can get out pretty nice flavors, although it's a Robusta. So, but you get other flavors than with the Arabica. So you cannot compare these two. Maybe the process would be the same, but the flavors you get in the end is completely differently. It's like, people in the industry always use that term, like you have red wine and you have white wine. Both are wines. So it's the same with Arabica and Robusta. Pretty much the same. So people are there in the market. Also, many Robusta farmers who are trying to get the best out of their coffee, and as I said, do these experimental processings, or doing really good naturals, really good washed. Meanwhile, there are also really good honeys on the market, and that's the way out for many Robusta farmers these days, to place their product actually in the specialty market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, you say many in your area where your farm is located. I imagine that there are probably other bigger farms that produce both commercial grade and also specialty grade Robustas then, or are you one of the few in your area?
I'm actually the only one in my area.
Okay.
The next ones are in bigger areas, like these Uganda hotspots, Mbale, Rwenzori, these areas. I don't know anyone besides these big companies who processes the coffee washed. Maybe they're out there, but in a scale which it's not something I would consider doing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I mean, when I say a lot of Robusta producers are out there, I mean, not only in Uganda, also in other countries, which they also struggled in the beginning, and they are really doing a good job meanwhile, and promoting and placing their Robustas also in the specialty market, which
Yeah.
helps everyone in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, and now I have to ask why. Why do you think that helps everyone?
I mean, if the awareness of Robustas is growing, and people are talking more and more about Robustas in the industry, so the awareness grows, and I hope that growing helps that more and more from the industry are reaching out to more and more Robusta farmers to get in contact with them and to work with them together in the future, which would be very helpful. Yeah.
From what I know, obviously I'm not a coffee farmer, but from from what I know and what I've heard, one of the big advantages in growing Robusta, as per the name of the plant, of the species, it is a more robust species to grow. Also, because it grows at lower altitudes, there is a wider variety of land that can be used to grow Robusta. And therefore, with regards to climate change, going forward, it will potentially be easier to produce high quality Robusta in bigger quantities than it might be to produce high quality Arabicas, at least in some coffee growing areas. Is that something that you can confirm that applies to where you are based?
I don't know about growing Arabicas because I've been there, but I can't tell you about how really intense it is right now for them to see and how to grow in these days and circumstances and concerning climate change. What kind of big problems? Of course, they have big problems, but we have them as well. It is out there that the Robusta is more robust than against diseases and temperature and everything. But you have to fight the same battle every day, also against climate change, against sunshine, against too less rain, against too much rain, against diseases which are out there. I don't know any Robusta farmer who doesn't have any diseases. They are also there, and we try to fight them. The only fight we have is remove it and we burn it, so we don't spray. So it's not easy, but I would not say that we have other problems than Arabica farmers, let's say like this. Yeah.
But there are still issues that you grapple with growing Robusta. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. For example, you have too much sunshine in the growing stages of the coffee cherry. You get a lot of floats, for example, which you cannot use in the end for your premium coffee, which are going to be removed before even processing that coffee. And too much rain, as I said in the beginning, was also bad for the quality of the coffee bean. So it is a different battle, let's say like this, maybe. But every coffee farmer has to fight a battle. I mean, in these days,
it's not an easy thing to grow coffee.
It's not that easy anymore. Let's say like this. Yeah. Maybe if you hear stories from older guys who grew coffee in our area, and they said like it's never been that hard.
Okay.
They've never experienced so many problems we have to fight right now. So I believe them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, you know, it really drives that point home as well, because obviously, you know, living or not working the land in my case, but having a job that only relies on an agricultural product like coffee without having anything to do with the process of growing it. Climate change is something that's happening out there for me, and obviously I see that weather patterns are changing and we have weird weather phenomena happening here with, you know, too much rain and floods and things like that. But to actually hear how it can impact your living situation, that is a different story. And how, you know, how from year to year you can actually really tell that things are changing on your farm, and that you feel like you have to adapt, you know, from growing season to growing season even. That is quite scary, I imagine. All the more, all the more amazing that, I mean, I have your coffee in my product range right now, and I've told you before, people love it and I love it. And I'm really grateful to guys like you, to growers who invest heart and soul and hard work as well into producing that quality Robusta, because as a roaster, I can tell you, it isn't easy to find good quality Robusta that's at a level where you want to sell it as a single origin coffee. So you are fighting the fight and you're doing the work. Thank you for it.
Thank you. We pass it on to all the workers who worked on that coffee.
Yeah, please, please do. How many of them are there? How many people work on your farm?
Right now they are Easter holidays right today. So but now next week I think we will have, when the pickers are coming, like up to 20 for the picking. Yeah.
It is a seasonal work, obviously, with coffee picking season. That will probably be the peak season, I would imagine. But maybe since, you know, a lot of us on this end don't know too much about the process of growing coffee, if you don't mind taking us through the year in coffee a little bit. I mean, it takes, I would imagine it takes quite a bit of work to actually get to the point where you can get all the workers onto your farm to start picking those ripe cherries, right?
Exactly.
So what happens before that?
So actually, what happens is you plant your seedlings, and the seedlings there are two types of seedlings you can get. One which you actually take the seed of the bean and put it in the soil, and you wait for it to germinate, and there comes a small coffee tree out of the bean, and then you wait like for another year in the nursery until it reaches maturity level where you can plant it. You can bring it to the field, and then you plant it. The other method is you get cuttings. Cuttings is like, you know, you get one of the shoots from a coffee tree, where you can be sure that you would duplicate that exact coffee tree. And same method, you put it in soil, you wait for it to germinate, you get new leaves, new tree shoot is coming, and you wait for 6 months to 1 year. There are different techniques. Some are planting these ones after 6 months. Some are waiting for to plant it in the fields after a year. And then you plant it like the other one. And then usually it takes 3 years before you see the first small quantities you have where you can pick the coffee from that coffee tree which you've planted. But throughout the year, you are not making any money with it. That is the problem. So if someone wants to start a coffee farm, he should know that in the first 3 to 4 years, he doesn't make any income from coffee. Which is
how long it takes for the first harvest, for the first proper harvest.
Exactly. And the first harvest usually not very big, so you can expect after 4 to 5 years, 5 years, a really good harvest if you took care of the coffee tree, which is um, all year long going episode. So it's not like you can just plant it and you leave it and you come back after 5 years. No, you have to weed, you have to slash, you have to put on manure, depending on what kind of farm techniques you use. But it's quite a long time from planting to picking. You have the first coffee picks, cherries.
Mhm.
So it's you need to have like some
Savings.
side businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah, side businesses in the beginning. Okay, what you can do is you can plant some seasonal things in between in the first 3 years, like beans or maize, where you can earn a little bit of it, or matoke. But coffee first years, nothing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Even more astonishing that you guys decided to go down that route. Huh? It must be a good mixed concept then to actually be able to make a living off of it.
Yeah. I mean, we grow some of our food ourselves. Like we don't eat matoke every day, but cassava is there. Exotic matoke is there. Potatoes, sweet potatoes, pineapples, all these things we can grow by ourselves. So yeah, it's a good mixture, but it's not really for commercial intentions, but it's just for for us to eat. Yeah.
And then I guess because you are processing at least part of your harvest as washed coffees, you do that on your farm, or do you have to take the coffee somewhere to get it processed?
No, actually, everything is done here on the farm. We have a depulper where we pulp our coffee and ferment and dry. Up to parchment stage is going to be everything here on the farm.
And so you sell parchment coffee, not cherries or coffee at a different stage.
No, for to get the green beans, I have to bring it to Kampala to hull it and grading and sorting again.
Yeah.
And then it's ready, export ready. It's in Kampala.
And just to gain a better understanding, when you sell your coffee, you said in the beginning that you started out with direct trade, essentially with the end customer, and you even sold roasted coffee. But generally speaking, nowadays, now that your harvest has grown and you have more coffee to sell and your access to market has changed a little bit, how does the process continue then? So when you sell your coffee, who do you actually sell to, and where is it taken? Just to gain a better understanding, the steps in between the coffee on your farm and then the coffee in my roastery and the roasted coffee in our customer's cup, basically.
Yeah. So these days I'm actually switching or moving from selling to end consumers, switching to roasters. Because in the beginning it was also a learning process. It is a long process, a very long process to get actually a bag of coffee to an end consumer at home. It is it's very long and very stressful, and we did that actually all by ourselves. So I had friends, I had my siblings helped me. It was kind of a hustle in the beginning, but switching now to roasters, where you can actually get a broader audience or more people who are get to know your coffee is one thing, and the other thing is it's much more easier for me to work with roasters who sometimes also import their coffee themselves, or you just have to deliver it to Kampala, not to Germany, then in Germany again to a roaster, then packaging, and all the things before an end consumer gets his bag of coffee. So what I'm trying to do is now to tell my clients to work with this roastery or this roastery where they can find my coffee. So that's actually the easiest and I think best way for each and every one. Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I bought your coffee not from you directly, but through an importer, from my perspective, this side up in the Netherlands. Do you sell to them directly do they pick up your coffee in Kampala? Is that how it works? Or do you sell to an export company that's based in Kampala and this side up deal with them? Or
so with your coffee, for example, I sold it in Kampala to. Okay, there was another lot which went to this side up here from Uganda, and the other company was actually the export company. So I met up with these guys in Kampala and put my coffee in that container, and we made a shared container like to Amsterdam, and from there it's where you get your coffee from, and afterwards. Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm asking all these questions simply because I am even, having worked in the coffee industry for the better part of 10 years now myself. I'm still sort of trying to find my footing when it comes to all the terminology and to questions like what is direct trade and what is fair trade and what does it all mean in the coffee industry. And I guess, I mean, talking to you, you are somewhat of an expert then when it comes to direct trade in coffee, because that's how you started, right? You started out trying to trade your coffee as directly as possible from the grower directly to the end consumer. And so, I mean, that's definitely interesting for me to hear your way from there to where you are now, because, as someone who's trying to do their best to make it fair for everyone in the chain, it's really hard to understand what the best solution could look like. So it's interesting to hear your perspective, having gone through a couple of different models. What do you as a grower and as someone who's somewhat of an expert in this now, what do you think a fair way of buying and selling coffee, what does that look like?
Well, first of all, I think it depends on which market you're trying to get into. Now, as in my case, I think it's the easiest way for a grower who is really, has to be on the farm all the time, more or less. It would be the best to sell it either here on the farm or Kampala. And let's say to some roasters import their coffee themselves. Sometimes some are doing this. Some import companies are out there who make a really good job, like this setup from Amsterdam. I mean, the term direct trade is out there for I don't know how many years now. I think it was maybe in the 70s, I think, something like that. I don't know. And what is direct trade? Direct trade is in the context of what direct trade is you have a relationship between roaster and producer. For many producers, it's not possible to get in contact with any roasters because that many different reasons, language barrier, no internet, whatever. So these import companies comes in between of these relationship, but it still use the term direct trade. But still, for these farmers, it's still a model which will work out for them perfectly, and they will get better prices for their coffee instead of selling it locally somewhere. Yeah, I mean, every farmer tries to get in contact with companies from Europe, the US, wherever. But it's not easy to get in contact and to build a relationship where you can really say, yes, I'm selling direct trade to some roaster. But in terms of, let's say, the financial background, it's definitely the best way to work together on a direct trade relationship with a roaster, which every farmer actually is looking for. Yeah.
So keeping that change as short as possible, basically. And in some cases, as you said, in some cases it is possible to build relationships directly from grower to roaster, but it's a question of access, really. It's a question of as simple as you said, a stable internet connection, just to actually be able to maintain that contact, but also to know where to find partners who are interested. And then I guess from the perspective of a small roaster, obviously, I would love to buy coffee from you directly, but since the amount of coffee that I need in my small roastery won't help you much, and logistically it would just be a nightmare to buy 3 bags of coffee from you and try to somehow organize the transfer from your farm to my roastery on my own. It just doesn't make sense, right? And so I'm really, really happy and glad for people like Leonard and his colleagues at this Site Up that they go out into the coffee growing world and find people like you who know what they're doing, who produce amazing qualities, and who can connect us in this way. And yeah, as you said, that's still a form of direct trade then, isn't it? Because in the end, it brought us together anyways. And we talk about, what's important to you as the grower, what's important to me as the roaster, and everything in between.
Yeah, it is definitely, yeah. I mean, you mentioned to keep the chain as short as possible. I mean, a farmer or producer always loses money the more people are involved in that trade between producer and roaster or buyer in the end. So it is for someone who produces coffee, he wants to sell it as short as possible, actually with no one in between. That's his aim, that's his goal, but it's definitely not, as you said, it's not possible in most of the cases. It's usually done through importers or exporters. But as you said, we are happy that Leonard is out there, for example, and put us two in contact, and happily you have our coffee now in your roastery.
Yeah, and me. And I think that's even in some ways that's even more interesting coming from you because you've tried starting out, you've tried the model of trading, not even just with roasters, but to go all the way to the end consumer and sell it directly. But it sounds like it was a lot of hard work in terms of logistics for probably the quantity that you can sell directly then is probably just not gonna make it very feasible financially in the long run, I would imagine, right?
It wouldn't have made any sense to keep on going that way. So, but it was kind of good to serve the clients and coffee which they didn't know before. So 100% Robusta, washed Robusta. It's 9 years ago. No one would have ever sold any washed Robusta in any supermarket. So the feedback was good, and that's why maybe also people from the industry got to know coffee, and interest in Robustas. And that was a hard way, but also a good way in the beginning. So, and I'm happy I tried it. But now I think we are on a way where we can say, or a stage where we can say, like, we work with roasters together where you can find our coffees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we've covered all the questions that I had, and I'm really grateful to you again for your time and the effort of finding the right moment in your day to get together. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? Any other topics that you feel are important to talk about and look at in the future?
For me as a Robusta farmer, it's maybe to get more awareness of Robustas and to change the mind of some people in the industry, which are really not really accepting that Robusta has some place in the specialty market. Because people, how many millions of Robusta farmers are out there? And by just saying Robusta has nothing to do with specialty, or fine Robusta as it is called in the Robusta world, you cut out with one word or with one sentence like a possible income for Robusta farmers all around the world. So it would be nice to see, like, as the movement already started, which is there. I can see you, Leonard, all the other roasters who are openly saying and admitting that there are really, really good Robustas out there. That the movement is continuing, and we try to get more people the chance or possibilities to try to get access to a fine Robusta or washed Robusta. That would help a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the comparison that you had earlier about wine, red wine versus white wine. I hadn't heard that one before, but I think it's very fitting because what we're talking about here is the flavor profile essentially, and Robusta just has a very different flavor profile from Arabica. But if you take it for what it is, if you drink it as a white wine and don't expect flavors like you would find in a red wine, or the other way around, I think that's just spot on, that metaphor. And it's coffees like yours that prove that it's a beautiful thing in itself, and it definitely deserves a place in the specialty market. I absolutely agree with you there.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work.
Thank you. We're trying.
Thank you.
We will do, of course.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And I'll definitely be looking forward to trying your next harvest, which is due to land at some point in the near future in Amsterdam, as I hear. And I'll be really excited to wrap my taste buds around a beautiful glass of white wine or a cup of Robusta coffee, or both.
Or both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Good.
Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll get the chance to have another chat at some point.
Thank you very much, Katja. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun.
Great.
All right.
Take care then. Thanks. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.